All right, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. If you're keeping score at home, this is episode 250. So it's fitting that my guest for this milestone episode be my very good friend and returning champion, Rick Marotta. Rick was one of my very first guests and has appeared on Live from My Drum Room more than anyone else. And why that is, I don't know. Besides being a legendary and prolific session drummer, he's also an accomplished composer and producer. As far as Rick's credits, it's easier to list the people he hasn't worked with. In this episode, we'll do a deep dive into some of Rick's classic recordings. We'll also talk about some of his recent projects. So come along for the ride and please welcome my good buddy, the legendary Rick Marotta. Rick, welcome. Good to see you, pal.
The reason that I'm your most frequent guest on your podcast is because we talk all the time anyway. And I always say to you, so you don't want me on the podcast anymore? We got nothing to say?
Actually, I was going to say I was going to throw into the intro the reason you've been on so much is because you can never say no to me. I often will bribe you with a dinner or something, but and also Rick,
those are great dinners.
Those are great dinners. Great dinners.
I think you have a picture of one of our recent dinners.
I think I do. Yes, you mean the one that we had
in Boston.
In Boston. Yes. Why don't I share that? This was just back in September, pictured with Rick and myself as my beautiful wife, Kelly. And let me just say, beautiful. She's radiant in this photo, as she always is. And that man next to Rick is Phil Rosenthal, the co-creator of Everybody Loves Raymond. And Rick, if you want to expand on this, but this was Rick brought Kelly and I to see Phil perform in Boston back in September. And first of all, what an amazing man he is. I'd never met him. Actually, I did meet him at JAR one time when we went to JAR for dinner in Hollywood when he owned it and you introduced me to him. But anyway, amazing. Just a wonderful human being and a funny, funny man. So anyway.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. We went to see his show at the Wilbur Theater in Boston. And Phil said to me, when I spoke to him before we were going to go, he said, let's go have dinner. And we went to dinner at the same restaurant that I was with him for lunch when I did my guest spot on Somebody Feed Phil, which was such great fun. And then last week, I was at the opening of his restaurant in Los Angeles called Max and Helen's, which is phenomenal. And then a buddy of mine, I took a couple of friends of mine and Hugo, and my assistant's husband, and we had lunch there. And one of the guys that I brought to the lunch, I saw him the other day. He said, Rick, I called to try to go back. There's a 3.5-hour wait to get into Max and Helen's.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think you can make a reservation. And it was three. It was really good. But he's a great guy. And yes, we had a wonderful dinner that night, and it was a really great show. And he is a very good man. And we just did the Everybody Loves Raymond 30 reunion.
Good segue. Yeah. That was great.
That was I think it was on last week. Yeah, it was really good. Had a great time. And the next day I was having, I watched football with Ray Romano, and we played golf a lot. And the next day we filmed on a Saturday, and then on Sunday I was at Ray's house watching the Jets game and the Giants game, which is what we do on Sundays.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. He's there right now. He just texted me. He's at the game in New York. That's why I'm not at his house right now watching it. And anyway, we were in the living room. So he and I watch it in the living room, and his kids watch it, and there's a screening room in his house. And So anyway, the kids, the day after, I don't know if I told you this, Sunday, they were going to be interviewed. So they did it Saturday and then they shot it Saturday and then Sunday they finished at CBS
Ah,
to interview a lot of people. A lot of those interviews, sit down interviews like with Lou Schneider and with Anna Romano, Ray's wife, and the boys, Matt and Greg and Joe was the next day on Sunday, and they were Anna and those guys were leaving while Ray and I were watching, and they said they came in to say goodbye, and I said, "Where are you going?" And they said, we're going now. We're on our way to shoot. They're going to interview us." I said, "You know what? Maybe you should mention the music. Maybe somebody should mention the music for the show." And Ray was sitting next to me, and Ray said, "Wait, yeah, we didn't mention the music, did we?" And I said, "Ray, in the 30 years I've known you, no one's ever mentioned from the show the music. You nor Phil. The only guys that talk about it are sort of like Lou Schneider and guys like that will come up to me and talk about it." And anyway,
well,
he
but
said,
Rick,
"We should have said something. Well, we should have said something about the music." I said, "It's really late. Too late now."
but I will say this for everybody watching. That night we went to see Phil Rosenthal. He's
Yes.
up on stage and he was talking about his Netflix show, Somebody Feed Phil, which is a great show if you haven't seen it. And he was telling a funny story about how he pitched it to all these different people to get it on the air. And then when he was talking to Netflix, I guess they said to him, what would you like? What would you want for your show? And he said, "I'd like a theme song." And in the course of talking about that, he said, "And then my other show, Everybody Loves Raymond, had a great theme song, and I have the composer here tonight, Rick Marotta." So you took up and stood up and took a bow, and actually I made you stand up. You didn't want to stand up, but you took a nice bow, got a nice round of applause. So Phil at least acknowledges the music, and we
And
have
if
a
you remember what I said when I took my bow,
yeah.
everybody was talking about what's a great guy Phil was, and I just yelled out, "He's a tyrant. He was an absolute tyrant."
There's a question.
Anyway, what's
There's a
that?
question. There's a question from Dave Grillo. Dave, is it? I don't know if it's Grillo or Grillo. I'm going to say Grillo.
In
Who
the
I bel
United States, it would be Grillo.
It would be Grillo. Yes,
Grillo, I think, in Italy, if he's Italian.
and he lives on the vineyard, Dave, and he's asking how you got the gig to do the music for the show. Everybody Loves
For,
Raymond.
for Raymond,
For Raymond.
that was because I had done a show before that was called Down the Shore, and Phil Rosenthal was in partners with his writing and production partner was a man named Alan Kirschenbaum, who I had met through my friend Sam McMurray, who's an actor from. So I'm giving you the whole story. So I was doing the music. I was a musical director on at that time the on set musical director for the Tracy Ullman show, and Sam McMurray was an actor. Sam introduced me to Alan Kirschenbaum and said, "Rick's a composer," and Alan knew who I was as a drummer because he was a kind of an audiophile. On the
Yeah.
golf, we met on the golf course, and as we were leaving, Alan said, "I'm going to be doing a show in a while." About 6 months later, he called me. He remembered and he called me, and I did his show called Down the Shore. His partner was Phil Rosenthal. Cut to a few years later, after that show was off the air, Phil called me, said, "I just did this pilot and we're going to redo. We got picked up and we're going to redo. We're going to put music in it. Specific music for it." And he hired me because we had worked together on Down the Shore. So that's how
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
job through Phil, completely through Phil, and we were old friends. Phil and I became very good friends on that show Down the Shore. So
Yeah.
I would go to at that time, he would have an Oscar party at his apartment, and his wife, Monica, who plays Brad Garrett's wife on the show, was pregnant. I remember, and we're sitting on the floor of his little apartment in Beechwood Canyon in Los Angeles because that's where I was doing the show. We were doing the show in LA, so I was here for that. And we're watching the Oscars, and then cut to, I don't know, after Raymond went into syndication, we go to his Oscar party at his screening room in his giant mansion, and, and he has food, and he would order pizza. So we ordered
Yeah.
pizza, and then cut to now you go to his mansion in Larchmont and Hancock Park, and And screening room, there's the Oscars. And the first year he did it, he had the food was sent in from Peter Luger in New York. I'll never forget it. He had like the whole Peter Luger restaurant flown to California.
It's good to be Phil Rosenthal.
Anyway, that's the long story,
Yeah.
Dave. That's how I got it. I got it through Phil.
Yeah.
We've remained very good, very, very good friends. In fact, I'm pretty good friends with, I see Ray a lot, obviously, because we play golf and stuff. But that's all he puts up with me on the golf course, and we watch football. And I see Phil socially because he's such a good guy. As John will tell you, I really
Yeah.
lucked out working with people like that. They were such good people that I would go to the tapings. I was doing a lot of shows at the time, and I didn't spend much time on the set. Some shows I would stay as far away from as possible because it was just, some of these things are not pleasant. That show was just, I became friends with everybody there, all the
Yeah.
crew. We all knew each other. We all, and if I wasn't in the studio working and I had time, I would go to the set and hang out. That was that.
I got it by the looks of it. It looked like a great, work environment with all the people there and all the personalities and
I have
yeah.
to say this. I just want to close with this. I talk about what a great guy. You know how I feel about Phil. I mean, it's incredible. I can't even tell you the the things in the office. He's, when if I was sick, he's the first person to call me is Phil. If there's anything, if he ever, I'll get a call from him. Hey, I heard this is going on. Is everything okay? And he's one of the first guys to call you. But to badmouth him a little bit, when we were doing the show, everybody, when we would shoot the show on tape, on the nights we would tape the show, people were scared to death of him because
Really?
yeah, because if anything went wrong, if in the middle of a really good take, he heard something in the background, he'd go, "What was that?
Oh,
Cut,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
cut, what was that?" But he's a good guy. He's really
Yeah.
good.
He ran a tight ship. Rick, I got to tell you that the proprietor of our favorite restaurant on Martha's Vineyard is watching
Christian,
right now. Christian Thornton.
I knew right away
Of
it was
course.
Christian. Hi, Christian.
Yes. Hi, Christian. Christian owns a Tria in Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard, the best
Actually,
restaurant on the island.
When Ray Romano and his wife Anna were on the vineyard, I took them to dinner. They were there for a wedding, and Ray and I played golf, but I said, "We're going to go to dinner and I want to take you to dinner." And we went. That's the place I took them because I said, "We're going to go to my favorite place." And Christian and Greer took incredibly good care of us. And if you're ever on Martha's Vineyard, if you can get into the place, if
Right.
you can't get in, just mention John DeChristopher's name because he's got a lot of pull there. I got nothing. I got nothing. Sam will let me in downstairs once in a while. If I go there by myself, he'd say, "Rick, I can't get, but I can put you at the bar downstairs. You can get a burger."
Uh, hey, we love the burger bar too.
We love
That's
everything about
we
that place. And the
we love
people,
everything.
Christian and Greer, the owners, and Christian's the head chef, the head guy there. They are the best people. They're such
Absolutely.
really on a place like the Vineyard, when you have somebody like that, you just have to make sure you have your bank card with you to stop at the ATM before you go.
Yeah. Overdraft protection. Yeah.
Unless John's there. If John DeChristopher's there, just say I'm here with John DeChristopher. He'll pay for it.
Christian, it's great to see you. Hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving, and we send our love. He's blushing. We send our love for
I
the
wonder if
holidays.
Christian's in Mexico. I wonder if they're in Mexico yet.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, Rick, and talking about, I mean, it's the summer, which we're talking about when we talk about the Vineyard and Christian and Atria. But you've had a busy year because you did a gig in was it
Savannah.
July or so? Yeah, it was in Savannah. Was it July or August? Sometime in the summer, you went down and did like a special kind of. Maybe you can explain it, but it was kind of like a celebrity. One of
It was
those.
really, really good. It was this guy, this very, very good musician and a very nice guy, very talented guy, Thomas Claxton. He called and he does these things there in Gretsch is affiliated with the school down there, and Gretsch has an incredible room. I mean, the place where we did the gig was at the hotel. I wish I had all the information in front of me. And Thomas puts together these sort of like little, they're kind of like super sessions or something like that. In the old
Yeah.
days we met. And I think he just had I think Will Lee was just down there with Steve Ferroni, and I forgot who else. And anyway, it was me, Bob Glaub. So I'm on drums, Bob Glaub on bass, came from LA, and Will McFarland came from Muscle Shoals. And it's that kind of a situation where you put
Yeah.
these guys together. And then, since we've all played on a bunch of records, well, Thomas will send out, here's a list of songs we're going to do, and there's a few songs that Will McFarland did, like with Bonnie Raitt and people he's worked with, some stuff that Bob Glaub did, and then some stuff Bob and I did together because we worked on Jackson Browne's records together, and we worked on Bonnie Raitt's record together,
Hmm.
and a few other things like that. And then some stuff I did, like some Steely Dan stuff and some James Taylor stuff and blah, blah, blah. And that's what he does. And you do a concert, and we also do a Q&A. It was really nice. It's really nice. And it's affiliated with the school. Now, when we did it in let's see, it was in August. It looks like it was
Yeah.
August 12th.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and then he has these little Q&As, and unfortunately, I don't have a way of showing you any of these photos, but it was good. It was really good. And the another highlight from that was that my friends from high school who live in that part of the country, they came up and spent the weekend, and we hung out. So I got to hang out with my friends Perry Varelli and Dave Brighter and Bully Bulikowski, their wives. We all went to high school together.
That's
Uh,
great.
and that was really great. These are all guys, and I knew everybody because these guys married their high school sweethearts who I knew because we were all in high school together. So I knew
Yeah.
everybody. But it was a really, really good gig. And it was really, the only thing was that it was in August and school was out. Normally, Thomas, who masterminds all these things, he does them in affiliation with the school down there. And a lot of students come for the sort of, for the, there were Q&A and for a little bit of uh, I don't know, not lessons, but some special
Yeah.
one-on-one stuff. And unfortunately, school was out, but it still was nice. It wasn't, and the room was phenomenal. It was really
Yeah.
good.
Well, our friend, our good buddy Colin Schofield, who lives he was just on my show last week. In fact, he was my first boss at Zildjian way back in the 80s and 90s. Was there? He lives in Savannah now, and he was so excited to connect with you because he knew you were coming to town. And this picture was not taken there. This was taken. This is courtesy of Lissa Wales Archives, our dear friend, the wonderful Lissa Wales. And thank you, Carlos Guzman, for sending me this photo. I think this was NAMM 1997, Lo said. But anyway, you got to hang with Colin, and he's still raving about it. He was saying to me just the other day when we were talking how great you sounded. He said, "You sound just as great as you did back when he used to go see you in LA, And I said, "That's unlikely."
Yes, very unlikely. It's being kind. Now, that was the picture from then. I don't know how to do it, but
Oh,
this
yeah,
is a picture of us. Oh, gee, I wish I
that's
could do
good.
it.
No, that's good.
There's a
Very good.
picture of us that night, and you can see he's aged really well. Me, not so much.
You're doing just fine, pal. You're doing just fine. By the way, my brother, Chris,
Hey,
is
there's all
is
my high
watching.
school buddies.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's a great picture.
Yeah, I got to get them to now sign releases for all of these photos.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Yes. Yeah, my brother's never watches my show, but he is today because you're on it. So,
Chris,
yeah,
my favorite actor.
your favorite actor. He says hello.
He's quite a talented actor. Everybody should know that. Any casting people out there that are watching this right now, he's a bit of a pain to be around, but really, really good actor, very good character actor.
You summed it up perfectly. And you wouldn't believe what it was like being his brother growing up. Talk about a pain.
I
But
can't imagine.
he was a great big brother. He took good care of me. Well, Rick, should we dive into some music? Actually, there was
Sure. I mean, we've bored. Let's see. See, we
yeah,
could.
let's play something that you hit me to recently, and we're going to come back again to more present time and talk about.
Can I just say one thing
Of
to
course you can.
everybody, to the five people that, of course, that we know that are watching this. I don't enjoy. This is all Johnny's idea to talk about me. I every time we do this, John, what do I say? I'd like to talk about this person. I talk about that person, and he's always like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." No, let's talk about this. Let's say, and I. It's hard for me to talk about me because of my humility and my lack of
Yes.
ego, as everyone knows. But I just want to say that's my disclaimer.
Okay. Well, I'll just say this in response to that, Rick. The reason I don't let you talk about other drummers is because I'm tired of you dissing Steve Gadd on my show. And so is Steve. He's complained about it, in
You
fact.
know, recently John was doing one of these podcasts with Simon Phillips, who I love, and Simon has this this thing that, so we'll get to this later, but I've been practicing and playing a lot more lately. And Simon has this little technique thing that he does, right hand, left hand thing, that I just happened to stumble on a few years ago, a while ago. And I just think it's brilliant. And so when he was going to do it with Simon, I said, "Oh, that's awesome. You know what, Johnny, I'm gonna call in and I want to tell Simon I want about this." And he goes, "I don't think you should really call in because it's Simon's thing." So just to give you an idea of anyway, and I know Simon's not watching this, but
He
he
might
has
be.
some great exercises that he does that are really good. Okay.
Oh my God. And Daniel McCarthy is just saying to you, Rick, we can talk about Grand Theft Audio. He's that's
Okay.
him saying that, not me.
The group I called Grand Strep Throatio or Strep Throat Audio, Grand Strep Throatio.
Yeah, strep throat audio. Oh my God. Okay, well, we're gonna play a song right now, and then we're gonna come back.
That's John's band, by the way, for anybody who
That's
doesn't know that.
yeah, Grand Theft Audio. That is my band. And this is a song that I was trying to find the clip and I couldn't find it, but David Garibaldi had mentioned this song a while ago when he was on my show. I think we were talking about Rick, and he said, have you checked out the tune "She's a Burglar"? And I said, no, I didn't know it. And he said, you got to check that song out. And then recently, Rick and I were talking over the summer, or maybe even more recently, and you mentioned this song, and you sent me the link, or you pointed me toward it, and I'd never heard it, and I think it's 1972. Rick, does that sound right?
Very early. Now, the reason this comes up is because in talking to John, I'd like to do more, and John is very agreeable about this. More very like, okay, Steely Dan we love all that stuff and all the great artists I've played with and all the really well-known things, Boz Scaggs, all that
Jackson and James Taylor, and yeah,
yeah, all that. But I like these obscure things or songs that people may not have heard. And so we have to forage through. And one of my, and another thing, just to disclaimers and to preempt this whole thing is some of my favorite compliments that have come from these drummers who I respect beyond respect. And Dave Garibaldi, obviously one of them. For the non-drummers here, Dave plays with Tower of Power for the last 50 years, and he's on one of the most. I'll use a word that John uses that I can't stand. Iconic R&B funk things of all time was What Is Hip.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's every time I see him play it, and I've had to play it a bunch of times, it's just a lesson, a drum lesson. It's a groove lesson. And Dave Garibaldi said to me one time we were someplace together. I think we were doing a Groove All Stars, and he came up to me out of nowhere and he said, I got to tell you, there's a song you played on where it was the first time I ever heard upbeats on a hi-hat played in a groove other than like a reggae thing. And I go, and he said this song called "She's a Burglar" by Howard Tate, and that kind of blew me away. And he was going on and on and on
Yeah.
about that, and that's how this all came up.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a long-winded version of it.
And you said, Rick, earlier on in this, when I think I found the date was 1972. I made a note of that. This would have been really early in your career, right? I mean, this
Right,
because you
very, very beginning of my career. This was all through Dave Spinoza. Jerry Ragavoy wrote a lot of this stuff and produced it. He was the original owner of the Hit Factory in New York City, and he wrote "Time Is on My Side" from Rolling Stones. He's written big hits, early hits, and we did a lot of work with him. And Spinoza, David Spinoza, the great guitar player, if I'm not mistaken, I think Rags produced this, and I think David wrote the arrangement.
okay.
And so when David wrote an arrangement, he definitely knew my playing. And he was a guy who I learned to read through his stuff. And anyway, that's what this was about.
Okay, great.
It's a very subtle thing. It's very early, but the song and the arrangement, more than just the drum part, was really good. I thought.
And this kit would have been like a house kit, like back in those days. It wasn't.
If this was the hit, had to be the Hit Factory, and so it had to be the kit that was there. And my cymbals, snare drum, it was my cymbals and snare drum, because I would bring my trap case, cymbals, and snare drum and sticks.
Yep.
And the rest of the stuff was there.
Yeah. Great. Well, here it comes. She's a Burglar. Howard Tate. Rick Marotta on drums.
She's a burglar. She broke into my mind. She's a burglar. Took everything she could find. She looked into my eyes. They came out from the socket. And just like that, my heart was gone. She put it in her pocket. She's a burglar. She broke into my mind. She's a burglar. Took everything she could find. I was standing helpless, lost on my control. She smiled at me with honey lips. Then she stole my soul. She's a burglar. She broke into my mind. She's a burglar. Took everything she could find. She's a burglar. She broke into my mind. She's a burglar. I took everything she could find. I held her in my arms. Heard her call my name. And while she sweet talked me, she paralyzed my brain. She's a burglar. She broke into my mind. She's a burglar. I took everything she could find. She's a burglar. The woman broke into my mind. Ah, she's a burglar. Somebody ought to arrest that woman. Ah, she's a burglar. She went on and vandalized my mind. She's a burglar.
What a great tune. What a great arrangement, as you said. It has.
I was glad that you. I think Jerry. By the way, Jerry's the one who sent it to me. He goes, "Remember this?" And it was kind of out of the blue. And this is a while ago. And that's when I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
Garibaldi had mentioned it to me years ago, but Jerry said, "Why don't you talk to Johnny about She's a Burglar?" Jerry's great at that too. He's great at pulling stuff out of his hat that I did. But I liked that song. Is it? Do you think people listen when we do this? I forgot that you play music when you do
Yeah.
this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely people listen to it. And when it goes up on YouTube, it'll be there. People can dissect it more, it'll be audio and video and they can stop it and listen. And yeah, no, I was just going to say if David was the one that arranged it, kudos, because it has such a great 70s sound to it. You know what I mean? It's so, I
Well,
love.
that was that Hit Factory, and if I were, I would bet, I would guess, I don't know, I can't remember for sure because it was so long ago, but it was definitely Jerry Ragavoy who wrote these great songs, and it was, of course, Howard Tate, who was so great. The guy should have been. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing. I love pulling up stuff from these artists that are pretty obscure, and the guy should have been like. I mean, he should have been a household name, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And his delivery of that song, the way he sings the song, forget everything else, and the arrangement, the horn arrangements, and the bass and parts, and all the guitar parts, the slinky sounding guitars. I wonder if it was David and Hugh McCracken maybe, and and
Mhm.
and it had to be. The horn parts sound like Huey, but it also sounds like Ragavoy, because Jerry Ragavoy was very talented arranger himself. So I should have called David and asked him. I'm going to see actually Spinoza's. I'm going to see Spinoza this week.
Right,
So
right.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him.
I have a question from our friend Jean Nadeau from Montreal, great
Uh-huh.
drummer, great friend, asking, and I was going to ask you this question, if you had a chart or was it just something that you did, you had a chart. And
Yes, but those charts were they were maps. They were like this.
yeah,
They were just, if you had a chart, it would look something like this, just sort of not even this much. It would have just the hits. Like you don't have the beats. You just have a hit.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that would be just
All those
a
accents.
little
Yeah.
a little accents and the breaks and stuff like that. Like you'd see them, it looks something like that. It'd be wide open, just so that we would know where we were going. Like David would sometimes just hand me a bass part, and he would notate. He'd go, here, there's this fill here and this fill here. Or sometimes he would write out. If he had a specific part in mind. But I would think on these, it was just like this. It was just these kind of really these maps, these are the same things I write for myself, because this is what I kind of learned on it. And it gives me the freedom of playing like the upbeat stuff and things like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the amp going out. Those are stuff that you could come up with because you didn't have someone dictating every note you played. I just had this conversation Thanksgiving dinner. I had Thanksgiving with Jennifer Condos and Jay Belleros, who Jay's,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Jennifer was the great bass player who did the Zevon thing here with me, and also did. She was on the road. I was on the road with her for a year with Stevie Nicks. We toured together. They're the nicest people, and they're incredibly talented. And Jay, what a great drummer. Jay
Yeah,
is.
great drummer. Yeah.
And we just had this conversation talking about when parts are written. And one of the guests there was Sam Phillips and her husband Eric. And Eric, who's a violin player and an arranger, we were having a very deep discussion about charts and writing them. And I said to him, I asked him a question about Del Capo's DSs and double DSs, because I've been writing these charts for myself, and I'm trying to put one song on one page, right? And so it means map, repeats, DS, Del Capo, codas, and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
he said to me, Rick, I don't know, when I write charts, I don't ever have repeats or DSs or DCs, because with string players, it's just this long thing. I said, Eric, you realize that on a session, I remember Steve Gadd and I would be in the studio together, and I'd look over, and he had tape. He had tape everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
All the music stands and everything, and he would look at me and he would just crack up. But we were like on the John Tropez sessions. There's spread all over the place. But no, that after the digression, those were probably mapped out, and those breaks, those little hits would be written, and then I would play the best way for me, and David knew this, and Ragavoy knew it too. The best way to do this would be to just put those hits in, or like Liam Pendarvis and all those guys used to write for me and for Gadd and for Steve Jordan. They would always write those kind of things because they knew us. They knew what we were going to play and fills and stuff. And that was something that they would leave open, but they'd have the hits.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great insight. There's another song I want to play just because it's sort of right on the heels of this that I just became aware of this morning, thanks to our friend Harry McCarthy.
Harry McCarthy, yeah.
Wow, and this is a song.
By the way, you want to know another quote from Harry McCarthy today? Nobody wants to hear what you did 50 years ago. Nobody wants to hear you talk about what you did 50 years ago. That's the McCarthy quote. And the other quote was, how come John DeChristopher never talks about me being in his Rolodex?
Harry was one of my first guests. All right, I'm going to have Harry back. He's overdue. Hey, Jeremy Stacy. Wow. A quick hello to Jeremy Stacy.
God.
Wow, man.
See, this is why I love doing this, because I get to say hi to guys that I love that are so great, and Jeremy's one of them.
Absolutely. Jeremy
probably is he in England right now? What's he doing up?
He could be in England. He could be in LA. He could be anywhere, Rick. He could be anywhere. Jeremy could be in Nashville. No doubt playing some vintage drums, beautiful vintage drums wherever he is. Well, let's
before we go any further, speaking about vintage drums, I know you can barely see this, but when I was at Jennifer and Jay's house for Thanksgiving, I went into a room, one of his drum rooms. Can you see those? I had to take a picture of these drums.
I can see those.
A drum in that room from this century.
I
not only from this century, I think some of them are not from the last century.
I think you're right. And I know all his cymbals are old. You know, he loves old cymbals, and we've had conversations about that. Yeah, he like my friend Charlie, Jeremy's in the UK, he says, but just old beaten in cymbals. That's Jay's thing. But this tune, so this is an Edgar Winter song from 1975 called Solar Strut.
And Harry brought it. I completely forgot about it. And it's something that we did back on his Jasmine Night Dream album. And before you play it, I just want to say it when Harry sent it to me this morning, he goes, why don't you talk about this? And I had completely forgotten about it. And I'm really glad he brought it, because I don't know if a lot of people ever heard this. And I don't know if a lot of people know who a lot of these people are, but at that time I was playing with Edgar Winter and Johnny Winter, both, both their bands. And it was going, and Edgar was a rocker. I don't know if people remember who he is. He plays with Ringo Starr. Is he still with Ringo now?
He's not at the moment, but he was with him for a while. Ringo sort of rotates a lot of the musicians.
But he's a rocker. But what people don't know is he was an amazing keyboard player, singer, saxophone player, and songwriter. And then this particular thing, this is an instrumental, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and he would refer to me as like the jazz drummer or the other drummer, the guy that plays all the weird oddball stuff.
Yeah, I think it said that when I looked at the Wikipedia listing of the track listing, you're listed as the other drummer or something like that.
we were touring. I was touring in the White Trash Band when Bobby Ramirez, who was brilliant, was not doing it. I was doing it at the time, and I was rotating. I was going from Edgar's band to Johnny Winter's band. And if you don't remember these guys, Johnny Winter was a brilliant blues singer, guitar player with it was four pieces. It was me, Rick Derringer, Randy Hobbs, and Johnny Winter. That was it. And then I would go from that to this 10-piece band or 8-piece band with Edgar Winter. And he had these horn players from New Orleans, John Smith, and Jerry LaCroix was a singer and also, I think, played saxophone. So you'd go, it was like culture shock. It'd be one day I'd be playing with Johnny, and one day I'd be playing with Edgar. Okay, that's...
Yeah, well, I'm going to play, the first thing I noticed, Rick, when I listened to it, the first bar, I knew immediately it was you. I mean, I hadn't heard the song, but the sound of the snare, the sound of the drums, the snare drum especially, it's not because it's the drum, it's the way you hit the drum.
Harry mentioned right away when he called me, he goes, Rick, listen, he goes, the drum sound. And I listened to it when he said,
great.
Because it was all new. I was like, I've heard it for the first time because I haven't heard it in 20 years or so. And I noticed the recording of this was so good. And there wasn't any automation. There was no trickery back then. It was all like, you had to know what you were doing. You turn around and there was a wall of stuff that you had to work with. And these guys, I tried to look up who did it, and the information, I don't have the information. I don't know where. I can't even remember where we recorded it.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think I saw it, Rick. I'll find out later. I'll come back and I did find something about it on Wikipedia, but you never know how authentic that is. But you are listed as the drummer, and there were a few other people listed, I think, as that played on the track. But
I wonder if Rick Derringer played on it too.
I think he did. I think I saw his name listed in there. Yeah, I think he did.
Really good. He passed away this year. That was shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a loss. Yeah, so this is from 1975, 50 years ago. As Harry said, nobody wants to hear songs you played on 50 years ago, but we do want to hear this one.
No, he didn't want to hear stories about what I did 50 years ago is what he said.
I see. Okay. Well, this is a great, to me, it's a gem because, like when we're together, I'll just say this, we'll be having dinner together on the vineyard and out of nowhere, you'll mention some record that you did that I wasn't aware of and I said, that was you? I remember we were talking about Jim Croce, and you mentioned something about I Got a Name, and I went, "That's you on that song?" Jesus, it kind of bothered me because I like that song a lot, and
yeah, I know.
All right, before I go down a rabbit hole, let's play Solar Strut, Edgar Winter, Rick Marotta on drums. Here we go. Incredible track, Rick. Incredible. Man,
I'm
wow.
exhausted just listening to it.
You should be.
I
You've
got a
been
little tired because I can't believe that I made it through that song.
You were 50 years younger. You had a little more energy back then.
Don't, don't remind me.
What a great tune. I mean, so much. I made some notes. I mean, the hi-hat work throughout, but all the accents, all the hi-hat chirps on those accents, just, and, someone commented, I think John Ferraro, just, beautiful, natural flow. It's best way to describe it. It's just the way the whole tune just flows. I mean, and that's you just take, Steve Gadd could never do that. I'm going to go on live on the air right now. He
I was
could have
going to
never
try to
come
get
up with
through
it.
without mentioning that guy's name. My nemesis.
No, man,
Well, I
that
appreciate
was,
that's very nice of you to say that. And
wow.
I feel like I like listening to it now. It's odd. I'm wondering how people are reacting to it. My feeling is I wonder how people like John. Thank you, John, for saying that. But not you, John Ferraro. But I wonder how people that aren't of our from back then, younger people listening to it, I wonder if they it's like you when I listen to it, I go, that's Edgar writing, playing the saxophone, coming up with that whole idea, playing
Yeah. Yep.
all the synth, those weird synth sound stuff and things. That's all Edgar. And
Yeah.
I want to just say one thing. When I was working with Edgar, I remember one day we were at rehearsal and he had this song that he had just written. I wish I could remember it. He goes, Rick, I got the song and I have an idea for the drum part. Okay. And he sat down behind the drums and he played
And he can play. Yeah.
most left-handed, weird. And I said, Edgar, you're gonna have to teach me that part. He goes, yeah, man, and he's a real character. And he sat down and he just played. It was so good. And I had to learn it. But it didn't take me, it took me 5 minutes, but it was one of those real left-handed parts, real interesting, creative parts,
Yeah.
not something. And that was, you really learn from non-drummers that
Right.
are play the drums. You can really learn a lot because they have this idea of where things go, and that was in that particular instance, that was it was another eye opener to me to always listen to what people's ideas are and sift through them. Some of them are really bad ideas. This one was really good, really musical, and it came from Edgar's mind. It was,
Yeah.
it was
Yep.
his thing.
No, I know what you mean too, where he didn't, it's almost like he could cut through the clutter of what a drummer, how a drummer might overthink it in a way too, but he was like a means to an end. He heard what he wanted to hear and needed you to kind of make it happen. But I went on to Wikipedia and I, with a grain of salt, I know, but for the entire record, it's not by track, but you're listed. Johnny Winter's listed on it. Rick Derringer's listed live wire guitar. Dan Hartman bass. You and Chuck Ruff are listed as drums. So maybe Chuck played on a couple of tunes, but Chuck Rouge drums. Rick Marotta, the different drummer, drums. That's great. That's so great. What a great song. Thank you, Harry McCarthy, for suggesting this song.
Yeah. Otherwise, we would have had nothing to talk about other than how good I look.
That's right. And that could be a whole show in itself. And there will be a future show where we talk about how good you look. But we're gonna move on for now. All right. Thanks for watching part 1 of my conversation with Rick Marotta. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out part 2, which will drop Monday, December the 8th. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you soon. All right. That's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave me a comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also download the episodes on all podcast platforms. And please visit my website, livefrommydrumroom.com, for upcoming shows and information on purchasing Live From My Drum Room t-shirts and hoodies. 100% of the proceeds go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. The link is also in the show notes. And you can contact me through my website or at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you again real soon.